today we are thinking about life, beauty, and being. So once beauty was about goodness and truth, but now we think it means little more than models, products, and outdated art. Have practical concerns and the economy of desire made beauty trivial and expendable? Or could we follow Goethe and Kant and cultivate our aesthetic judgement to enrich our lives? Or is the goal of living beautifully a conceit only for the privileged elite? I'd like to introduce our speakers first. Justine Kolata. Justine is the founder of the Public Sphere Salon and an expert in German philosophy. Bence Nanay is a philosopher of art and a professor at the University of Antwerp. And last but not least, Roddick. Sam is an activist and artist. She founded the erotic boutique Coco De Mer, and she's presented for BBC Arts. So the question they will be responding to first is the goal of living beautifully a conceit of the privileged elite? And we'll start with you, Justine.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I very strongly believe that it is not. I think that, first of all, we have to talk about definitions. How I think that popularly, when we talk about beauty now, people do associate it with models and fashion and everything that I think contorts the true definition of beauty, which is I see it in the more Platonic sense as a kind of abstract form connected to the good and the true, and something that is a kind of guiding principle of our life that we find in many different areas, be it in looking at a beautiful sunset or seeing a beautiful interaction between two people, or looking at a piece of art that somehow elevates us as human beings. And to me, that is not trivial at all. And in fact, I think that's the essence of morality is grounded in that kind of conception of beauty. The essence of being a human is grounded in that conception of beauty. And so I think oftentimes when people associate beauty with other things and they say it's not significant, it's not consequential, it's because they're thinking of it in this more modern sense where it is connected. But I'd like to completely separate the two, because if we confuse them at all, we're talking about something entirely different. So from my perspective, my research is grounded in this idea of the beautiful soul, and this was kind of grounded in the Enlightenment principles of, striving towards rationality, striving towards equality, striving towards kind of scientific truth. But it was also kind of at the bridge between Enlightenment and Romanticism, and then the play with the emotions and the significance of feeling and experiences in the world and encounters with people. These things were united in this concept, and essentially the idea of the beautiful soul, which we now would dismiss. In the age of Trump, I think to think about the beautiful soul sounds ridiculous, but I think you'll see more and more that something that I think a very pragmatic approach to the world in politics, in economics, in society has kind of branded as insignificant. We will see with the total demise of values that this again becomes very significant, precisely because it holds a kind of more objective truth. And so in relation to this, I would just say that this concept, the basic idea was that you could kind of cultivate yourself almost like a person sculpting a sculpture. You can sculpt away the impurities. Essentially, the idea was in your soul. We often think about physical health. We think how our body operates, but we never think about the condition, the state of our soul. And if everyone did that every day, I think it would have huge implications for how we treat other humans, how we interact in the world. Are we living a life of value and meaning? And so a lot of this was thinking about, okay, well, our individuals' actions in the world, a lot of it was thinking about the subjective, cultivating virtues, cultivating a kind of sense of self in relation to others, but it was ultimately directed at the objective, a kind of collective good. So it was, while it was very subjective and individualistic, it was for the sake of humanity, because the idea was in line with the kind of Kantian idea that enlightenment is the French Revolution, the chaos that happened in something that was so good, but then eventually led to the terror. If there's kind of dogmatic action that's unreflective, it won't lead to any more clarity or truth. It will only lead to chaos and madness. And so the idea was kind of taking up that Kantian principle of we each are kind of a very significant being in the world that is a unit in a society, and that if we don't realize our potential, if we don't cultivate latent potential, then we are not being, active moral agents, and that's so essential to larger frameworks of morality. So I think, I guess I'm out of time probably, but yeah, I think it's absolutely fundamental in that sense.
Fantastic. Thanks, Justine. That's a really great start for us. Bence.
Thanks. So the question is whether beauty is the privilege of the elite.
Yes.
So my guess is that very few people would say that it is. And I guess, that would be a bold position. So I'm going to take that bold position. So I think that beauty, at least in some sense of the terms, traditionally understood, is the privilege of the elite. And that's why we should not care about beauty in that sense. Maybe we should care about beauty in a different sense. So maybe it's a definitional question. So we're going to see that, I guess, later. But I do want to argue that much of what we care about in the world of art is not beauty anymore. That may have been beauty in the 17th century with Lorentz little landscapes and stuff, but not really anymore. That's not why we go to exhibitions. That's not why we go to the cinema. That's not why we go to the theater, or not why we go to concerts. The reason why we do go to these events is to get experiences that are really rewarding for us, special kind of experiences. And some of those experiences are what has been traditionally described as beautiful, but not all of them are going to be that. So I think in some sense, it's been a big mistake for aesthetics, the philosophical discipline, to be obsessed with beauty, because beauty is just one aspect of what we find interesting or exciting about art. And it would be a good idea for, if we want to understand our engagement with artworks, to kind of widen our horizon and to focus on, because disengage with this obsession with beauty and focus on various kinds of experiences of all kinds. That's my pitch.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, I'm kind of interested in the concept of beauty in how I personally experience beauty, but then also the political interplay that it has within our lives, and then actually from an economic point of view, where the commodification of beauty comes in. So there are these three areas of beauty that I personally interact with. And I was really thinking about it, because what does the experience of beauty really feel like? And when do you actually get to observe beauty, and what state are you in? And I think that is a really interesting question. And I wanted to come up with an example where actually beauty shifts and changes with biorhythms, and that sometimes is from an emotional perspective, but then also through political kind of eras within history, what is considered culturally beautiful also shifts. And you're seeing that kind of speed up as kind of aesthetic styles are kind of get dumped and put into the landfill, and new ones arise and old ones get reborn. So the way I wanted to describe my emotional interplay with beauty was how I can see somebody who's asymmetrical and very typical. I can immediately find them an extraordinary example of physical beauty. And as I get to know them, various realities of their characteristics start to paint a hue on their features that allows me either to redefine somebody who might be immediately not very attractive into somebody who is stunningly attractive, that comes, and their aesthetic shifts as you either emotionally bond or find them kind of repugnant. Somebody very beautiful can shift into a form of ugliness in front of your eyes. So when you actually have this, you can start to realize that your emotional landscape actually feeds your perception, and that can be ever shifting all the time. And I think that's a really important perspective to hold. And also, when do we see a beautiful kind of sunset as beautiful? We have to be in a state of observation, because we can walk past beautiful experiences every day, like a symphony of birds, and all we're hearing is our thoughts or our stresses, and we actually kind of can blank out these kind of extraordinary kind of feelings of presentness, because actually observing beauty requires us to step out of ourselves and actually be an observable character. Now, the most important question is, have we changed, or have we commodified beauty and made made it of an economic value? Does somebody who is more beautiful hold a more value, social value, and therefore is more rewarded within our economic society if they hold the right features that we can recognize them with? And is somebody who is ugly penalized for that? But also that also comes in with actually the history of what we culturally have defined as beautiful has always been dictated by the politics of the wealthy, from religion, from the colour blue that the Virgin Mary was painted. It was illegal for any artist to use it other than that. It was the most precious colour. The actual geometrics of a temple was controlled, and you were kind of physically penalised by the church if you actually made a church to disproportions of the golden mean. And so I think that is also the fact that actually beauty is about exclusivity.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at IAI TV.